So for our next segment, we're going to be talking about picket lines and struck goods. And so a little bit of backstory. Workers at Kellogg's organized into the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers International Union, BCTGM, went on the third of 4 large BCTGM strikes in 2021. They were preceded by strikes at Frito-Lay and Nabisco, and succeeded by Local 37's strike against John Denaire Desserts in California, which is still ongoing. When workers strike, they walk off the jobs and they form picket lines outside their places of business. And when we see picket lines, we do not cross them. The most egregious example of crossing a picket line, and unforgivable even for many working folk, especially ones that have lived through a strike, is scabbing or working for a company in a position that workers have struck. We also do not consume over picket lines. You do not, under any circumstances, shop at a Kroger where there is a strike taking place, for instance, even though the Kroger may be open with scabs running the cash registers. This is all basically common knowledge, at least to union folks, and part of our project here is to broaden the knowledge about union issues and educate people about unions and what they can do for folks and how we can support them, especially as other union members and people in the working class. And so we do not even really need a formal call for a boycott to know not to cross a picket line. It's kind of understood. And this is the situation that we were faced with during the Kellogg's strike. The union itself did not call for a boycott of Kellogg's, the company, partly because, as it stated in an email to principal and secondary officers of labor federations across the country, of which I am an officer of, BCTGM workers do work at other quote-unquote Kellogg's-owned brands, and a boycott of Kellogg's could hurt non-striking members that work for other Kellogg's companies. But that email did encourage people not to buy, at this time, Kellogg's dry, ready-to-eat cereal products, which is the arm of the company that was being struck. And now, we can talk about, of course, the strategic value of, is it smart to have people working for the same parent company? I would say not, but that's what the union was asking for, was for people not to buy Kellogg's dry, ready-to-eat cereal products. And in addition to these official calls from the union, we could see striking workers making the same calls. Kevin Bradshaw, president of Local 252G, requested people not buy Kellogg's cereal in an interview with Amy Goodman, and Trevor Beitelman did the same thing in other interviews. He's the president of another local union, I believe, in Battle Creek, Michigan. And for me, and I think most folks interested in acting in solidarity with striking workers, that's all we needed not to buy Kellogg's cereal during the strike. Is our lack of consumption any statement on the morality of Kellogg's or Post cereal? No. To believe that would be absurd. It's about doing the bare minimum to support a strike. Is our lack of consumption implying a belief that this consumption choice is our best way to support a strike? No, I don't think so. And I think to believe that would be absurd. As I said, it's like the bare minimum that we can do to support the strike. We regularly and far more often plugged the donation links to strike funds and even participated in the fundraising stream for Kellogg's Workers Strike Fund, hosted by the folks at the Working People podcast. I'm very proud to have been able to participate in that, and I'm very proud to have been able to host our own fundraising stream for the mine workers here in Alabama. And that brings us to our next guest, Peter Coffin. They are an internet patriotic socialist, author of the book Custom Reality and You, and they believe that it's fine to buy struck goods, and so that's why we wanted to bring them on to talk about. We wanted to bring them on to talk about that today. So Peter, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I appreciate it. Can they hear me?
Hi. Sorry, I had my mic muted. I didn't want to get any noise through while you were talking.
There we go.
I want to preface what I'm saying here by mentioning that I'm not saying that it is fine or not fine to buy struck goods. I'm saying that it is not really relevant. For one, people who are acting in solidarity aren't really the primary market for them. People who are acting in solidarity are a tiny number of people and will not affect the amount of people eating cereal and consuming cereal in a meaningful amount. At least that's my opinion.
Okay, sure. So
can I say,
yeah, go
Peter,
ahead.
would it be accurate to say that your assessment is more so it's not so much about the quality, but just the quantity, the sheer quantity of people who might even participate in this action wouldn't make enough of a difference for it to be worth prioritizing?
I don't think
pretty
that
fair?
Well, I think part of the problem is making such a call makes the implication that it can actually materially have a real effect. But like most people who are buying Kellogg cereal are out. Well, they don't know about unions. Like not enough people are in unions. Like I think that like if you're going to do something like not buy Kellogg cereal, take the couple dollars that you were not going to spend on the cereal and put it into a strike fund instead. I think that's the, like, you can even take whatever you save in buying a generic or whatever replacement thing that you get and put it into a strike fund. I just think that materially it makes much more sense to do something that directly helps the workers rather than attempt to make a dent in consumption.
So, I mean, what is going to make the most difference? Donating $5 to a strike fund or not spending $5 on Frosted Flakes? I don't think that anybody is going to be arguing that donating $5 to a strike fund is going to be more beneficial. The problem that I had was that during the strike, there were people sharing graphics with the Kellogg's brands on them and calling on folks not to buy them, and you took issue with that. Like, not correcting them and saying that, no, the union's only calling for, like, the dry cereal, but saying, but like, saying the way that you... the way that you presented what you were saying was basically it seemed like you were attacking people, calling for people to abide by the wishes of the people that were on strike, and attacking them for this, and even implying like I said that we think that that's the best way that we can support these people. It's just like I said, that's the bare minimum that we can do as consumers, and it's not an unsustainable thing to go a few months without Frosted Flakes as opposed to like Publix brand Frosted Flakes or something like that. And so it's, it would be different if you like retweeted something and said, on top of that, spend the savings that you get from generics to doing this. But like crossing a picket. No, but it was not in addition. It was, this is stupid. It doesn't make any difference. Donate to a strike fund instead. It wasn't in addition. It was like almost it.
I did like later say that though.
No, you did say that you should donate to a strike fund, and I think maybe even in your initial tweet you did. But like, do you not, as somebody who knows people who have been in unions their whole life, gone through strikes, like crossing a picket line is a very, like, if it's something that you know about, that is just like one of the worst things that you can do to a union person if you have knowledge about it. And so I do not have an issue with people calling for boycotts of struck goods in the way that you do.
Well, the reason is because it really means nothing. Like, you're not actually crossing a picket line if you're in California. Like, they don't know. Like, people don't know that it's going on. Like, it might be in the news, but people don't pay attention to the news in the capacity that, and also for another, the news isn't viewed by the entire country either. But to me, it's talking about making consumption. The way that you've presented it, I think it views the wishes of some workers as infallible and above critique. I think that this is a useless tactic. I don't think that it is useless or useful to not purchase goods. I don't think that it does anything. I think that it more or less creates a moral issue out of something that could very well be a material issue if it were expressed in a different way. I don't think expressing it through demanding people consuming different is helpful. Like the point is to withhold labor, not to have moral consumption.
But again, it's not even about like saying Post Cereal is a more moral company than Kellogg's. It's and it's not even saying that that the workers' strategies are above critique or infallible. It's that this is a like not consuming something during a strike is a good way to support people, and even at a on the margins, that is obviously gonna help. I mean, people have like on the internet, the serfs, who is the person that you quote tweeted initially. They have an audience in the tens of hundreds of thousands, maybe. I'm not totally sure, but several large creators and several union and lots of union people. Every single principal and secondary officer of labor federations in the country, from local labor councils to state federations, got that email requesting people not to buy Kellogg's dry cereal. Like,
do you think that is a meaningful number of people who consume Kellogg's cereal? Do you think that is their primary market, or even like a large secondary market? Do I think that that's going to make or break the strike? No. But do I think that people supporting a strike in that way is meaningful in a material sense? Yes. Yes. I do. So how does it affect the company's bottom line materially enough to actually make that change? Like, how is it materially effective?
You're asking me to explain how it's materially effective when people don't buy products.
Yeah. How does consumption of a tiny little demographic made up of very few people, how does that materially affect the overall product in order to exert pressure on the producers? How does that actually...
So the producers, the way that they make money is by people buying products. And so if you're squeezing them from both ends of the
you're not squeezing
line,
them, though. The people who buy cereal are like people who send their kids to school every day, not people who are spending time on Twitter every day. Cereal is not something that leftists have a big pull over. Like, I'm sorry, that's not the case.
It's not even like I said, every single president and secretary treasurer of every single labor council and state federation got this email from the national AFL-CIO requesting people not buy. These are not like leftist people, and there are 12 million union members in the country. And
how many people buy cereal every day? How many people buy cereal every day? Is it 12 million?
I don't know how many people buy cereal every day, but
I think way more than 12 million. I'll tell you that. It's way more than 12 million.
So
12 million.
You don't think that some number in the double digits of millions across the United States has any effect, them changing their consumption habits for 3 months, has any effect on a company's bottom line?
If they can bring in scabs, it has a tiny little effect that doesn't actually change their decision-making process.
If I may interject here, I guess I'm trying to kind of synthesize between the two of you, because there's a lot we have in common here. Honestly, I think my question would be: is there a number or a strength that we could reach as a labor movement because at some point in our past, we had over a third of workers belong to unions officially, with many more who were, spouses and children and, in the kind of the family of labor. So, do you see a point in the future where if the labor movement grows larger and perhaps more importantly, more effective and stronger, where this kind of boycott could be effective in, actually hurting the bottom line of a company?
In theory, yes, absolutely. It is like there's a tiny number of people in unions now compared to where it used to be. And I think that that's very unfortunate. But I think that that's a large reason why just having union members not by serial is not enough. And on top of that, you aren't going to have a large number of people. We aren't going to have a large number of people.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing that I think that with a consumer boycott per se of a struck good, I would take it more as a organizing opportunity, like an educational opportunity, because I think you're correct that many folks across the country are going to go to Walmart or Publix or wherever they're buying their groceries for their family. They have no idea which goods are struck goods, which, what may be happening in these companies. So to me, I see it as an opportunity, those of us who do know about what's happening, to try to have those conversations with folks of, hey, and I've had that with friends of mine and said, I just got back from the grocery store. I didn't buy X, Y, and Z because of this strike that's happening, whether it's Kellogg, Frito-Lay. And those are good conversations to get people engaged and know what's happening. I hear exactly what you're saying, that just the sheer numbers of folks who could participate may not, have the clout to ding their bottom line in a way that's going to necessarily help the strikers. There's that part of it, and I think the other part of it would just be more like a morale sort of symbolism. And I think I hear where you're coming from on that there's a lot of danger in terms of our politics already is so much about perception and separated from real life, more or less. So much of our politics is spectacle, and there is some danger, I think, in just going down that road further. But I agree with you, Jacob. There is sort of a line with folks who do know, folks who are in unions. If you do know, I do think you have some responsibility to at least make a good faith effort to uphold any boycotts that are called by unions, or not crossing picket lines, whatever that may be. Understanding that that's not necessarily possible for every person in every situation, but so that's just, I guess I'm trying to be the centrist here and kind of.
There's another piece. There's another piece here in that. When an email goes out to all the people sort of behind the scenes at a union, and the union organizes this action, it's very different than calling for people not to consume something on Twitter. That's something that it's not necessarily an organized action. It's not necessarily one that you can reliably assume that people see. There are other issues here besides it just doesn't materially change anything. There is a big difference between an organized union action versus calling for something on Twitter. And I think that maybe has gotten lost here a little bit as well.
Yeah. And Jacob, I don't want to pretend to speak for you, but I mean, I think that's something that you 100% not only agree with, that's something we've discussed on this show in terms of like the whole general strike thing back in the fall. And it was, it was left-wing people on Twitter, I'm sure acting, from a good place in their heart. But, we can't, a handful of folks get on social media and say, hey, everybody, we're going on strike on, November 1st. That's not the same as, a handful of unions coming together to say we've talked with our membership and we're all saying we should all go on strike on November 1st. Right. I think there's a big difference there. And on that point, I think we're largely in agreement there.
I'd have to say yes. I think in terms of, especially with the general strike issue, we're in hard agreement there.
It's very difficult for me to grok like saying that this is, some of the things that you said was like, again, kind of implying that I think that this is going to be the make or break thing. And I think that the make or break thing is going to be the withholding of labor. But as the bare minimum that I can do to change my consumption habits for 3 months, encourage other people to do the same, and to donate to strike funds, which, like I said, we plugged strike funds way more. I don't even know that we mentioned the not eating Kellogg's cereal on the show. I guess we did, but we plugged the strike funds much more often. We participated in a live stream supporting the strike fund. So obviously we're in agreement. Withholding labor, donating to strike funds is going to be the bigger thing, but I believe that when workers strike a company, that the bare minimum that we can do is not buy goods from that company, and I believe that that is not going to be the principal thing, but I think that that makes a difference, and I think that and I don't see how dissuading people from doing that makes anything better. Does that make sense?
I understand where you're coming from here.
Yeah. Do you think that telling people, okay, the workers here are asking you to not buy this product while they're on strike, a totally reasonable thing to do, very easy, but it doesn't matter, you shouldn't do it? Or you didn't say you shouldn't do it. You said it doesn't matter. Your consumption means nothing. Do you think that helps the strike?
I think that it helps it an equal amount as doing it. In all honesty, I don't think that it is a material effect in terms of like calling for something on Twitter and having people do it. I just genuinely I don't think that this is talking about the actual issue. And for me, yes, it's if you morally don't feel good buying struck goods, I would say don't do it. If you don't feel like it's a good thing, I agree with people's decision not to do that. However, I don't think that on social media, now keep in mind, this is making a hard distinction between doing it on social media and doing it via the way that it was done behind the scenes through organizing the union to do it. But on social media, calling people to not consume something, it doesn't make any sense. People don't understand the context. People don't know where you're coming from. It may not be seen, et cetera, et cetera.
But why would you not then elevate? Like, I understand where you're coming from. Not a lot of people will see that. A lot of people don't understand the context behind picket lines and consumer boycotts supporting striking workers, and a lot of people don't know that history. Why would you not instead then elevate the workers calling for us not to eat the Kellogg cereal, that are striking, that are foregoing, that are sacrificing a lot? I mean, I've never been on a strike. I know people that have been on strike. I know people that have lost houses being on strike. That's a big commitment. And these people making this commitment, doing more than you or I, Adam has never been on strike, than any of us have ever done, fighting for themselves and other members of the working class. Why would you not elevate their requests to not buy Kellogg's cereal, contextualize it, say that the more important thing you can do is donate to the strike fund, that this has a history, not buying struck goods? Why would you not do that instead of poo-pooing people?
Instead of ask them to donate to their strike funds instead? I don't know. Maybe because I think that it's more useful to spend that time asking people to donate to strike funds.
I think... like I said, you guys are not nearly as far apart as maybe I thought coming in.
I don't think that we're that far apart, but I think that there is to me, I feel like there is a distinction here in that we get to this more like a national stage, and I don't think that it works in the same way as it does on a more local stage. Like locally,
that's also
speaking,
a good distinction, I would say, because the supporters of a local in a fairly small community, like in Brookwood, Alabama, 1,100 miners in UMWA and their families are a very sizable piece of that entire region, and they certainly can have some influence on.
I mean, the scabs they're bringing in there are coming from like West Virginia and Kentucky. They're not coming from the local community.
Yeah, so that's also a good distinction, I think, that you brought up, the national versus the local, because 1,100 folks in that one county or, in 2 or 3 counties certainly can sway economic data through a collective effort and a concerted effort.
Well, yeah, if you're drawing data from a specific region and you can get people in that region to act more in unison in an organized manner, I would say that is a much more that is where it starts making sense to do things like that. Whereas, on the national stage, you start to concede things like the market simply working through simple supply and demand dynamics, and that is not how the market works. It's a very complicated thing that involves marketing. It involves various other supply chain sources. There's things that, to advocate different consumption on a national level, it comes off to somebody who doesn't know what's going on as a moral thing, and B, on the national level, you don't have the ability to organize just a regular person. You're just kind of asking them to do something, and I just don't see that as effective. I guess probably the best thing is coming up with that distinction here between national and local. Locally, I would say, it's probably very good to say, hey, don't buy from this company, don't do this. We're speaking on two different stages, though, I think.
And one last thing, and I'll let y'all get back to it, but I wanted to just suggest that I think the labor movement as a whole, as we've said many times, including today, obviously we are a fraction of what we were at the height of our strength in this country. And I think we do need to look at what tactics can we deploy that can support our class broadly, and of course
the growing of the unions.
Right. Yeah. How can we grow our numbers? How can we grow our strength? How can we grow our support in communities that, for whatever reason, can't join the union yet? So I think consumer boycotts can be a weapon that can be leveraged. But I understand right now, especially like you said on a national stage, it may be more just a symbolic kind of thing. It may not be that big of a piece of the puzzle, but I do think moving forward, that's something that all of us need to consider is, are there ways we can leverage consumption to support our goals as workers? Because I think all three of us agree here that your labor is your ultimate weapon, your ability to produce and your ability to stop producing in order to get something. That's the magic right there. But are there other things we can do to support that?
There's one other issue in that a lot of the time I am arguing with people online. There are people who are coming at me that do think that consumption is the primary vector by which you can take some form of action. They are obviously people who aren't involved in unions. And I will say I can tend to get rather annoyed by that. And I find it to be kind of a defeatist position. It doesn't mean that every single person who thinks that it's the primary vector by which you might be able to exert power on a company. And I wanted to make that clear before we're done.
Right. And I think that speaks to a much larger trend. As I said earlier, politics is much more spectacle and entertainment than it used to be. And I think consumption has largely replaced true material power as a way in which we, deal with politics.
Which I think that is a problem because it's
right.
It's, we don't have the power in the spectacular realm. We only really have the power in terms of, like you said, primarily in labor.
Right. Adam, have we got Kenzo in the waiting room yet?
Yes, Kenzo is on the line for us.
So we are going to have to let you go. We've got Kenzo Shibata from the Chicago Teachers Union. We're going to be talking to them about their what they've got going on up there. There was one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Maybe we can talk about it some other time, though. So I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you having me on. This helps clarify things. This is what materialism is.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy the dialogue and the back and forth and trying to, reach some points of agreement and clarify some things. And
absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I look forward to checking out your stuff. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter.
Support for this program comes from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 136 out of Central Alabama. Learn more at IBEW136.org.